Ductmate, a leader in the HVAC marketplace, announces another breakthrough in sheet metal technology, the Ductmate Prorail turning vane system. The Ductmate Prorail turning vane system consists of the Prorail tab-type mounting rail and standard 2-inch or 4-inch double-wall turning vanes. Assembly of the system is simple. First, the rails are cut to the proper length. Then the necessary number of vanes are cut to length. The bottom rail is then placed on a firm surface, and the vanes are installed onto it by tapping them into place with a mallet. Next, the top rail is aligned with the vanes and driven into place. Because of the design of the tabs, the resistance of the friction fit to pull out is sufficient for most normal applications. No mechanical fastening is required. To illustrate the effectiveness of the friction fit, a simple pull test was conducted. A Prorail sample with 7 vanes mounted was tested against a leading competitor's rail system with 7 vanes mounted. The competitor's vane and rail were assembled with the first and 6th vanes mechanically attached as per the manufacturer's instructions. The tabs of the competitor's vane and rail assembly pulled out at 108 pounds. The tabs of Ductmate Prorail assembly pulled out at 403 pounds. The Prorail achieved this pull-out strength with no mechanical fasteners. The force needed to pull out the tabs of the Prorail was much higher than the forces which might be encountered in the duct system. Therefore, the vanes of the Prorail do not need mechanical fasteners or welds to hold them to the rail. To further illustrate the strength of the Prorail system, an in-duct static pressure test was performed. The test setup consisted of a fan and manometer to pressurize and measure the pressure in the duct. An elbow with Prorail installed in the normal manner. 3 sections of straight ductwork connected with Ductmate flange. This served to separate the 2 elbows so that neither would have an influence on the structural performance of the other, and a second elbow in which the leading competitor's vane and rail system was installed. Both elbows were equipped with a support for a linear measuring device. The runout gauges were used to measure deflection during pressurization. The leading competitor system shown here was fastened to the duct using sheet metal screws at 12-inch OC. Every 6th vane was peened over per the manufacturer's instructions. The duct was pressurized to 10 inches WG, its design pressure, in increments of 1 inch WG. As one can see, the vane and rail assembly began to separate at 5 inches WG and continued to separate as the pressure increased. At 10 inches WG, many of the tabs had separated completely from the vanes. The duct was then pressurized to 15 inches WG, or 1.5 times operating pressure. Complete failure of the assembly occurred. When the pressure was relieved, the assembly could not return to its original state. The Prorail assembly shown here was fastened to the duct with sheet metal screws at 12-inch intervals. No mechanical fasteners were used to attach the vanes to the rail. Once again, the effectiveness of the friction fit was being tested. At 5 inches WG, the Prorail shows no sign of separation between the vanes and rail. As the pressure is increased, the duct wall will deflect away from the rail between the screws. This could be reduced by adding additional screws, but it is not a detriment to the performance of the turning vanes. At 10 inches WG, the vane and rail assembly remains in satisfactory condition. As described, the duct wall will deflect away from the rail. When the pressure is elevated to 15 inches WG, the deflection of the wall increases. Also, there is some flexing of the rail at the midpoint between the fasteners. Once again, this is not detrimental and could be corrected with additional fasteners. When the pressure is released, the assembly returns to its original configuration. No significant residual stresses are apparent, and the vane and rail remains effective. The Prorail system offers a significant benefit over any competitive rail. Contact Ductmate at 1-800-245-3188 for more details.